Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
What's up, gang? Let's do this. Thursday afternoon. Welcome to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. I'm your host, Andrew Hustler Paterson, along with Michael Remis back at the WST Control Center. And we got a big show today before a big game tonight in downtown Winnipeg. The battle for first continues in the North Division. Your Winnipeg Jets taking on the Toronto Maple Leafs. This was supposed to be the first of 3 consecutive games between these two clubs with first place on the line. Of course, that's changed. Only 2 games this week, and now one final game between the Leafs and Jets on the 14th of May as the final scheduled game of the Winnipeg Jets regular season. Could that be for first place? Well, if it's going to be, Jets are going to need some good results. We'll talk about it with Ken Wiebe coming up in around 1:45 or so. And before that, of course, the big news yesterday, both on the show and around the country, was the official news that the Canadian Football League was delaying the start of training camps and the season with a targeted start date of August 5th. What does that mean for the players, and how are they responding to it? Maybe our favorite player, Big Will himself, Stephen Willie Beeman, Willie Jefferson, live with us coming up in about 10 minutes or so. As always, Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily brought to you by our great sponsors at Royal Sports, Not Autocorp, Boston Pizza, the Nick and Nicky DQ Group, Breezy Bend, Cool Bet, Aikens Lake, and very happy to announce late last night, the work doesn't end at the end of the show, put together a deal. Very proud and pleased to welcome Assiniboia Downs on board. They will have live racing. Doesn't look like they'll be fans, but we're going to have a lot of fun with Darren Dunn, his crew, and we'll kind of be getting that going in May, really, as they plan to start the racing on the 17th of May. However, Kirk Contois, handicapper extraordinaire, is going to join us next Friday to kind of kick things off with the track heading into Kentucky Derby weekend. All right, let's welcome in the brains of the operation, one Michael Remis. Remo, what's going on? How are you?
So I'm here. I'm just looking at this busy schedule for tonight. We haven't had this many games in a while. 10 games around the NHL, including the Jets playing here against Toronto. Waiting for that. Blake Wheeler returning for the Jets, and Jordy Ben getting a first look with the team, and also Nick Foligno. He was acquired from the deadline. He's out of quarantine. He'll be with playing on the top line with Matthews and Marner. So lots to watch for tonight's game.
Yeah, this, there really is. We talked about Blake Wheeler having the road trip off and not coming back in the game on Saturday night, which, to be honest, I thought was the right call. We heard from Wheeler saying, he feels as close to 100% maybe for the first time all season, and that is huge for the Winnipeg Jets, especially come 3-4 weeks when this team is competing in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Which means, of course, Remo, that we're going to see more new looks and lines. But it really is Old Faithful that'll be taking the ice tonight. Scheifele, Connor, and Wheeler. And that leaves Nikolai Ehlers along with Paul Stastny to play with Pierre-Luc Dubois, who's back at center. It was interesting hearing Nikolai Ehlers, who joined us this week, talk about Paul Stastny being the smartest player that he's ever played with, and seemingly really likes to play with Pierre-Luc Dubois, just what he can do in both ends of the ice. But again, to me, the biggest question when we talk about those lines, and especially that top line, we know that they can score. But the big question is, can they hang 5-on-5 with those tough top line matchups if they are in that situation up against Connor McDavid, or in tonight's case, the high-powered Leafs top line now with Nick Foligno riding shotgun with Matthews and Marner.
Yeah, and I don't know if you saw today's press conference. Nick Foligno was rocking the team-issued hat that was given to his dad when he played for the Leafs. That hat is called... It looks like it could be sold today. I still think they sell that kind of hat, actually, with the text. I think I had a Jets one back then that was the same. But we'll see how that goes. I think the biggest question for the Maple Leafs, we talked about it yesterday, goaltending. I mean, Jack Campbell's starting. Can he save a routine shot that, from the boards that he's got full view of? If you can do that, maybe they'll be in good shape, because it was a bit of a problem in the third period for Dave Rittich, who was acquired for a third-round pick at the trade deadline. So, Sheldon Keefe said he's happy with the way they played. I mean, you look at that game, the first one they lost in overtime. I mean, they were out shooting Vancouver. Braden Holtby just stood on his head. And then again, last game, game 2 against Vancouver. Another, Vancouver clearly had the better goalie, so they were won that game. So they just need some saves. But for the Jets in goal, Connor Hellebuyck, he's going to start, and we know he's been awesome.
Oh, man. And listen, maybe the funniest moment of today's media avails with the Jets and Coach Paul Maurice was our old pal Steve Simmons, who, with the Leafs in town, decided he'd get on the call. And he asked Paul Maurice, and Cy's a veteran, but Maurice knew exactly what he was doing. And he asked him, and I will paraphrase here, Paul, you've had so much experience. You've dealt with goaltending tandems for a long, long time. And Maurice just stopped him. He goes, Cy, I know what you're doing here. How can I discuss this without making it a story in Toronto? And as he is wont to do, he expertly pivoted to talking about Connor Hellebuyck just from a coach's perspective and just how much time it really saves from Paul Maurice, because he doesn't really have to think about that goaltending position very much. It's safe to say right now, Remis, that the goaltending is the thing that's keeping Sheldon Keefe up late at night. And if you don't believe it, check out his presser after their last game. As you mentioned, he liked the way they played. He thought they generated enough offensive chances. They scored some goals. But to quote the head coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs, there's some things you just can't overcome. And that thing is horrible goaltending. And that's what they had against David Rittich. And, with Jack Campbell back in net tonight, let's not forget that he got bounced in the first period when these teams played the last time. So the Jets will be smelling blood right now. And I have a feeling, not to mention the fact that, they didn't do anything offensively against the Edmonton Oilers in their last game. This is a team that, like Nikolai Ehlers this season, I think is going to be shooting the puck early and often this evening.
Yeah, and we're going to see that top line back together. Wheeler with Connor and Scheifele, and Ehlers, Dubois, Stasny. We know the lines Appleton, Kopp, and Lowry, Thompson, Lewis, Perreault. So the Jets, solid. They can score. They haven't lost too many back-to-backs, like once earlier this year against Edmonton. So they lost the last game. They've had some time off, had some practice time, and today was a pretty optional practice, but they got it in. And we will see, as I said, Jordy Ben, what he can do. He's fighting for a spot with Stanley and Heinola. Will he be able to make an impact? We know he's kind of physical. He can play both sides. He can play some penalty kill if needed. So we'll keep an eye on that as well. But, I was looking at some of the odds here. The Jets, we've talked about them all year. And here they are again, at home, an underdog. But not a crazy underdog. It was only like plus 105. And the bullet in chat saying they're kind of overvalued. He says that they should be more of an underdog than plus 105.
I don't know. They got 4 days off. I mean, they're a couple of, 4 points back of the Toronto Maple Leafs. Have had some good success so far against the Maple Leafs this season. And again, this is such a huge game when it comes to, this race for first, and that the Jets now have a game in hand thanks to the Vancouver Canucks with that regulation win. And if the Jets are able to win this game tonight, they move 2 points back of the Toronto Maple Leafs with that game in hand, and could theoretically, with 2 regulation wins, and I know I don't want to get ahead of ourselves here in these 2 games, could actually finish this series and go into next week being the top team in the Canadian division, as they'd be tied with the Maple Leafs, but they would have an extra game to play. So, it certainly is interesting. As far as the Jets being plus 105 tonight, first off, incredible work dropping the Coolbet lines into the ticker, Reem. This is a huge momentous occasion for Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Love seeing that. It does show that I think people are waking up to the fact that the Winnipeg Jets have been killing sports books all season long. We've talked about this before. I mean, the OddsShark Index has the Jets far and away the number 1 team. If you just bet on them to win on the money line, just to win the game every night, you'd have won the most money of any team in the NHL betting on Winnipeg every night. So sooner or later, that was going to come back to normal. I think, if anything, the reason why the Jets aren't maybe plus 110, plus 115, I think is because of what we just talked about, how much people are freaking out about the Leafs goaltending right now, Reem. And, if there's one thing that can move a line or shake the confidence of a fan base, It's have your goaltenders play like Rittich and Jack Campbell have in the last few outings, and that's where the Leafs are. I mean, they'll get the credit for being the favorite, but this is a lot closer, I think, than maybe we would have expected. Heck, the Jets were like plus 110, plus 115 at home against Calgary at times this season. So it is interesting to see that number come a little bit more into the realm of reality right now.
Yeah, and I looked at, I always look at Dom's percentages in The Athletic. He has a betting guide. He comes out every day. I think it's very, very good, and I kind of use that to base my, use it for my DraftKings picks as well. He's got the Leafs at a 55% chance to win, Jets at 44. So, I mean, that's just what one guy's numbers have, but you look at the goaltending. The Leafs are going to need it. We know the Jets have a bunch of shooters and the better goaltender. So, I know I looked at the DraftKings. Hellebuyck seems to be undervalued all the time. You know, usually they got the best goalies around 8,000 to 8,400. Hellebuyck has been like in low to mid 7s. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to play this guy. The Jets keep winning. He's getting a lot of shots on goal. He's making saves. I like Hellebuyck. Maybe that's a homer pick, but it has worked out here and there for me.
Yeah, no doubt about that. No, listen, I think it was Dennis that was asking about the odds, and we're quoting plus 105. Toronto minus 125. Those are just the money line odds where you can win in regulation, you can win in overtime, you can win in shootout. It doesn't matter. There's only two possibilities. That cool bet match of the day thing you're looking at, Dennis, that's a 3-way bet, which would include a regulation tie. That's what the draw is. So for the Jets to win at plus 172, that's winning in the 60 minutes. The Leafs plus 125, that's the same thing. The draw is at plus 135. That's kind of an interesting one. Certainly, Leafs minus 125. If you think they're going to win in regulation, you can nail that. So, anyways, that's just a little betting tip for you if you're wondering why the odds are a little different from what we're quoting. I personally, usually will play money lines. I just, if I'm betting a team, I just want them to win. I don't want to have to worry about it. Often, if there's a huge favorite, you might bet them on the puck line to win by a goal and a half or win by 2, obviously. But that is the case. So, anyways, we'll get back to tonight's game, Reem, because we've got Ken Wiebe a little bit later on. Wiebe's World, his second appearance of the week after an impromptu visit on Monday after the Zoom incident on the weekend. But we've got a very special guest coming up in just a moment. Of course, Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily is brought to you by Not Autocorp at Waverly and McGillivray. Why not get into the car of your dreams at an incredible price with the help of the Not team, including the biggest selection of Tesla vehicles in the province. Trevor and the gang been doing Teslas for over 7 years. And I popped by the dealership. There's some amazing rides there. So go see it for yourself. Waverly and McGillivray, online at not.ca. And if you're looking to maybe get out of a lease or a vehicle you're in right now, talk to them about their consignment program. They will help you out. And of course, Boston Pizza. It's a game day. Why not get the game day meal tonight? The spicy pierogi pizza, the meteor, the 24 case of wings. Or why not call your shot? Pizza pairs and Molson products. Eat in, take out, or delivery. You'll get a chance to call your shot and win instant Boston Pizza gift certificates, a custom-made ODR outdoor rink for next winter, or maybe even a VIP NHL experience. What a great way to fill up while you're watching the Jets and Leafs tonight. All right, yesterday was huge news. We were expecting something of the sort from the Canadian Football League. But we got a little bit of clarity as to where we're at with the virus and with our beloved CFL and the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. We heard from Wade Miller. August 5th is the target date to start a 14-game season. But we were wondering, how are the players feeling about this? And what have they, how have they handled, this unprecedented offseason in the middle of their careers? And what are they hearing right now about the upcoming year? So, without further ado, let's bring in, when we want to talk to a player, we got to go right to the top. Shout out to Darren Cameron for bringing in the boss man himself, our guy, Willie Jefferson of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Willie, how are you, my friend?
What's going on, man? Happy to be here.
First things first, how are you and your family right now? Where are you at, and what's the situation health-wise? Is it things kind of maybe getting a little more back to normal around where you are right now? How are you and the fam?
Me and the fam are doing wonderful. We are safe. We are having fun outside. Still doing the social distancing thing somewhat. we're fine. You know, everything in Texas. We are in Texas right now, Austin to be exact. Everything is pretty much back to normal. Still, like I said, me and my family, we are still doing the social distancing type of thing. Like we go places, get food and stuff like that, but then we don't sit around and hang around. We just get our food and go, and we pretty much do like the picnic setting and things like that. We'll sit outside on a nice day and have lunch, or a nice little snack or something like that. But other than that, everything's fine. Gyms are back open, restaurants are back open. Just moving around as if the season is going to start on time. Like you just said, got the big news yesterday, so just waiting on August to roll around so we can get back to Canada.
Yeah, dude, you are certainly not the only one. A lot of people here with us live today on the program, and Bomber fans and CFL fans everywhere wondering where things are at. Now, let me ask you this. I mean, was this were you expecting what we heard yesterday? What was your reaction to the official announcement from the commissioner? And had you you guys been basically told through PA reps or whatnot that this was already happening, or were you guys tuned in just like the rest of the fan base was to find out what's going on?
We were tuned in just like the rest of the fan base. You seen yesterday, a lot of players made Instagram posts, Twitter posts, Facebook posts that August 5th, they can't wait to get back on the field and things like that. So once the commissioner made that announcement, organizations started sending out emails and things like that to let the players know what was going on if they didn't see the announcement. But to answer your question, I was just as shocked as everybody else. I was waiting on some type of announcement on when the season was going to start, how the season was going to be, like the speculations, like, and the things that go around it. We didn't get all of that, but we did get a date, and that is something that is big for fans, something that's big for players, especially players that kind of wrote off the season again, with things going the way they was going. It kind of looked like the CFL was going to write off the season again. And, players were out here, trying to find stuff to do, to stay active, to, find something to do financially, to get money and things like that. But knowing that the season is going to start August 5th and, training camp and things like that, that gives a lot of people hope for the season.
Nah, no doubt about that. Willie Jefferson of the Blue Bombers with us here on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Since the announcement was made yesterday, have you been in touch with some of your other teammates and some of the other guys from the Winnipeg Blue Bombers? And if so, what are you hearing from your fellow members of the Blue and Gold?
Yeah, so I have a group chat with the defensive linemen for the Winnipeg team. So it's me, Jackson, Jake, Steve, and Connor. Like the guys from last year, like we've been talking, Connor and Steve have been the most vocal about things like that, them being rookies in 2019 when they first came and not being able to play their second year and stuff like that. They were really vocal, asking a lot of questions, not knowing what was going on, wanting to know what was going on, like the 14 season game, like how that was going to pan out, like when training camp and stuff like that was going to start, like how that was going to be. And it was just guys like me, Jackson, and Jake that was there to just tell them, like, we don't ask, like, we honestly don't know, but you know what I'm saying, from the looks of things, this is how it's going to go, this is how it should go. We kind of coached them through like the money situation and things like that, and just trying to keep everybody's spirits up. Like everybody in the group chat was happy. The other guys in my other group chat from just on the team, like Patty Neufeld, Yoshi, Stan, Nick Dembski, Wally, DA, those guys, Zach Caleros, those guys seemed happy to see that we got a date. Some people, that was really like the big thing, like, when are we going to start? I need to have like a timeline so I can get some things handled back at home. Like a lot of guys have started working. So, they can't just leave a job and, go to Canada and play football. You have to, do things accordingly. So you have to give these jobs or these organizations that they started working with a timeline that when I'm going to leave, like I'm going to be leaving around this time and things like that, just so things can be going smoothly and for them to, get back up in football shape. I'm saying, like, I know a lot of people wasn't working out every day or, doing like their regular off-season workout when you didn't know if the season was going to come. So now knowing that the season is going to be in August, starting August, so which means we'll have training camp the month before that. That gives everybody enough time now to, get stuff in order, find somewhere to work out, find somewhere to train position-wise and get in the best shape that you can until it's time to go to camp, until it's time for the season to start. So
now tell us about what, first and foremost, you've been spending some quality time with Kelly B and your lovely wife and doing all that. But when it comes to this last year, Willie, did you work outside of football? Did you find other things to do? And what about training? I mean, did you just, we're just going to take it easy, let myself get as healthy as possible? Or have you been on a pretty regular routine that you just kind of ramp up as you get closer to the season?
Honestly, it's been a little bit of everything. So at the beginning of the year, when we thought it was going to be a season and things like that, I was doing my training and things like that regularly. 4 times a week, doing my position drills 2 to 3 times a week. I also started training kids, like position wise, defensive linemen, outside linebackers, doing training with that. Also started driving trucks for a side job and things like that, just to have some type of financial stability during the pandemic and things like that. So it's been pretty much the same for me, besides going to work and trying to do something else, trying to do something different to keep my mind sane and just stay occupied and stay busy, just not trying to stay around the house and things like that. But I've also took some time to myself to relax and get my body right and spend some time with my family and just do me. Like I said, the season was unsure. So at one point in time, I was just like, let me just try to get my body right 100% and see where that goes. And then I was just like, all right, I'm tired of sitting around the house. Let me get back into the gym. Let me move around and stuff like that. Just got tired of going to work and coming home. So, like the drills became another thing that I started doing. And with me doing these training sessions with these kids, that just got me more amped and, kept my mind focused on football and doing football activities. So, yeah.
I mean, you're down there in Texas, Willie. I would imagine, and this is probably goes for literally everybody that was a CFL player that had to go through what you and everyone did over the last year, not having a season. You do have to sort of think big picture, think beyond the end of your career, what you'll be doing afterwards. We know that football is a billion-dollar industry, especially in Texas. Did working with kids give you a little taste of maybe trying to stay in the game once you're ending your incredible career, whenever that is?
I guess like that's always something I feel like I could fall back on. Coaching, I enjoy coaching kids. I enjoy seeing kids.
I think we lost Willie. Willie, can you hear us okay? Reem, can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you. I think he muted himself. I sent him a message.
Oh, okay, perfect. We'll try and get Willie back in. We'll just get him to pick to get back in. That was not. I will say this, folks. That wasn't Ken Wiebe's fault. And okay. There we go. There we're back, Willie. Sorry, we just missed you. We're talking about you're potentially getting into coaching and whatnot when you're eventually done with playing pro.
Yeah. So the thing is, I feel like with me coaching to be my.
There's Willie. Apologies to the folks in the YouTube. Just hang tight with us here. I think we had a mute there, Willie. We're still seeing you fine.
Oh,
Can
now
you
we
hear me?
lost it.
Okay, now we did lose him. Well, we'll see. We'll give another crack to try and get Willie back here because there are a couple other things that I would definitely like to talk to him about. There he is.
Yes. Okay, so coaching for me would be a secondary option. I want to try to figure out if I can fall into my first professional that I want to do, and that's broadcast. If I could find some type of way to do that, I would love to do that. But if I can't do that, as soon as I'm done playing football, I wouldn't mind being a coach. Like I said, I love coaching kids. I love seeing kids grow in their craft, and I love helping kids with their confidence and things like that. So coaching has always been something that's always been on the back burner, always going to be on the back burner. But like I said, if I could do something that I would love to do, and that'll be media, broadcast, either radio or TV and things like that, that's something that I want to fall into first before I try coaching.
Willie Jefferson's here with us here on not on TSN 1290. That's where
You're
we
not
used to
there no
talk to him.
more.
But it's on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Willie, let me ask you this: if you were getting into that opportunity to be a broadcaster, would you specifically be doing football, or would you want to be doing other things? Heck, you could come chopping it up with us every day on the program.
Man, honestly, I would love to do sports first. I would love to do sports first, but if I could try something different, I would love to do weather. And if not weather, I could do news. So, just like I don't necessarily like being placed inside a box. I do know a lot about sports, but I also feel like I can do other things as well.
I have to ask you about the winter you guys had. I couldn't help but notice your time in the Canadian Football League prepared you for some crazy snow down in Texas. What was that like? And you're out there, you and your family are shoveling out neighbors. All that time in Winnipeg prepared you, huh?
Yeah, it did. Honestly, it really did. Me and my wife Holly really took care of a lot of people on my street, and as well we took care of my in-laws, her family. They lost power, things like that. So with us having the savvy of dealing with the winter climates and things like that, we were able to keep our water on, keep our lights on and things like that, and keep warm. And we was able to shelter them, and it turned out to be a good deal.
This is great. We got the live look into the life of Willie J in the off season, moving around, making some moves right now in the truck. Well, what do you got going on this afternoon? What's up here?
Honestly, man, I'm just getting off work. Just clocked out, you know what I'm saying? Clocked in with you guys. About to head home. Chill with the fam for a little bit, and then I got class for another hour and a half. And after that, I gotta go get my sticker for my car. Just doing a lot of moving around today, man. It's a busy Thursday.
Real life stuff, huh? What's the class you got going on?
Just finishing some extra stuff. Got a media ethics class and a technical writing class, man. It's getting crazy. It's getting toward the end. Class is in on the 7th. So, I'm just trying to finish strong.
Have you always done that in the off season, or is that something you just picked up and sort of got into, knowing that there wasn't going to be a season and you wanted to stay busy?
I've done it one off season.
There we are. Well, it was a great run. It was a great run with Willie. I'll tell you what. The one thing that I'll take away from this is, Will, can we hear you now? Well, we are giving to Sean Murray, the official room raider of Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. I'm giving Willie a 10 out of 10 hat. Willie J, listen, you, my friend, we're having a tough time hearing you, pal, but I know you've got a lot going on right now. And I'll say one thing. Hopefully you can hear us. The fans are here. They're ready to go for August 5th. There he is, throwing up the W. We can tell you right now, if you're watching it on YouTube right now, he'll be back. We will definitely have you back very soon. Appreciate it. And everyone here is counting down to August 5th. You be well, Willie, and we'll look forward to having you back on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily soon. If you're listening on the podcast, I would suggest that you go and check out the YouTube video of this, because we obviously had some problems with the audio there at the end, but Willie is rocking a beautiful Bomber hoodie. He was throwing up the W. This guy is ready to go. And I got to tell you, as we all know here, I mean, I think we are still optimistic that we get the CFL back. I mean, it would be amazing and incredible, I think, for everyone if, August 5th, even at 50% or 25%, if the Winnipeg Blue Bombers are out on the field. Let's get Remis back in here before we get Ken Wiebe in. Reem, we'd had a pretty good run. Of no technical difficulties.
We had a good
and
run.
Again, I don't even think we can blame Rogers' phones for that, because of course Willie's down in Austin. But he's the best, and I got to give him credit. He was kept on coming back in when he cut it out. And the fact that he was right in the middle of working, going to class, it was cool to see how busy he is, what he's been doing for him and his family during this time. But it was pretty easy to see that, they were, disappointed that it's not on schedule, still very optimistic and very excited to come back, eventually raise that banner in front of a sold-out crowd, and most importantly, get back to doing what they love, and that's playing CFL football.
Yeah, 14 games, not a big difference from 18. I thought it was actually going to be less than that, so I think you got to be optimistic. It's been going, looks like it's going pretty well for him. One of the more entertaining backgrounds. He's in the car. He got out, took a walk around, started driving. I was worried. I was like, is this guy going for a drive? Is that legal? But it seemed like he was just parking the car and driving around a parking lot. So I'll give him a pass there. But yeah, I know a lot of people writing in chat. It's awesome that he's part of the Bombers. I remember, what was it, in the Banjo Bowl, where he had a couple of pick sixes for the Riders.
He single-handedly won that game for Saskatchewan. And
yeah.
And the thing that I love the most about Willie was he was more than willing to tell everybody about it and remind everybody about that too. Even when he came here to be a member of the Bombers, he would slide in every now and then. Remember what happened in the Banjo Bowl last year? And hell, that's the reason why Kyle Walters and Mike O'Shea went out and spent the jack to get him to come on down to Winnipeg, as he famously coined.
Yeah, and he is an enormous individual. I remember I was in the locker room after that game interviewing him, oh my God, this guy is huge. And then he came in studio with us out in Pembina. He couldn't even fit through the door. He had to, bend down. So, I know everyone in chat and all Bombers fans are so pumped that he's playing for the blue and gold now, and we do have the Grey Cup to show for it. He was definitely a big part of that.
Oh, I'll tell you what, the fact that Willie wants to get into broadcasting, I know a show that always has a spot for him, and whether it's talking CFL. How about Willie J as one of our NFL analysts next year after the season?
I'm sure
on the program.
Yeah, I'm sure he knows a lot of guys and has got a lot of insight. That would be pretty cool. I'd love to hear that.
The bottom line is, hopefully Willie's busy till about the 12th of December in Hamilton, which is the plan as to when the Grey Cup is being played, but certainly for playoffs. But it would be fun. I just love listening to Willie talk about anything, for that matter. I mean, he's such an engaging dude and such a great personality that it would be great to have him on talking about other sports and getting into it. And I'll tell you what, that is the one thing about this industry. I mean, there's a bunch of people that are articulate and they're literate and they're well-read and well-spoken. There is no, in my opinion, there's no substitute for personality and energy. And those are two things that Bomber fans saw the very second Willie Jefferson set foot in Winnipeg. In fact, before he even played for the Bombers, I think I'm going back to that time, Remis, that he joined us in studio back on Pembina Highway. And not only is he one of the biggest, most intimidating dudes that you'll ever see walk into a room, but when he's charged up, he has a special energy about him that certainly exudes from him when he's out on the football field.
Oh yeah, great player, very exciting, and a great interview as well. So always like talking with Willie. Nice to see he's keeping busy here. As now they have a date, we can count down, and I'm optimistic that they're going to be able to get something done there, and that it's actually going to start. You can set a date, and we saw what other leagues have set dates, and they kept getting pushed back. But this seems like we're on the right track.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed we are. Just looking at some of the the text in here. Paulette, that's a great idea, Huss. Hey, we've got a spot for Willie anytime. If he wants to get some reps in for his future broadcasting career, we are here for him at any point in time. Grey Cup champs forever from Baby Yoda. The Gitch Lishka, just a casual cruise around while talking to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Love that. Can't wait to hit the rum hut again someday. Eric, I feel you, buddy. We'll be back there. We'll be back there soon. All right, we're going to get to some Jets talk. Big game tonight. Jets Leafs. Before that, we will give a big shout out to our good friends at Royal Sports, 750 Pembina Highway and 650 Raleigh and EK. Spring is here. Give them a follow on Instagram. If you're in the market for bikes. Was just looking at their reel this morning on Insta. They've got an incredible selection of bikes. If you've never been in the store, you walk in, it's like I think it was a car dealership at one point. So it is the biggest sports store you'll ever see. But in the back, they've got an entire room dedicated to bikes. They've got e-bikes, BMX, cruisers. Pretty much they have it all. And despite a worldwide bike shortage, they are still getting stock in on a weekly basis. So pop by there. New fitness room, of course, soccer, baseball. It's all starting right now. And if you want to get ready for outside, Royal Sports is where you go. Not to mention NFL fans, all the new draft hats are in. If you want to pick one up before the draft next week, they are there for you. And of course, Nick and Nikki DQs, DQ Polo Park, DQ St. Anne's, Northgate, and of course, Niverville. I was talking to Nick yesterday. He might be on the Chamber of Commerce for Niverville. He gave me a rundown of how great a little town Niverville is, and I will tell you, they probably have bragging rights against most of the other towns in the area. Why? Because they've got a DQ, and probably people from all the other towns go to Niverville to grab a Blizzard, maybe a burger. Ultimate Grill Burger, my personal choice. But and of course, if you're in the south side of the city or in any of those areas, you've got a party or something coming up for a special occasion, get on it. They'll take care of you with one of those incredible DQ cakes out at DQ Niverville. So big thanks to Nick and Nikki for their continued support of the program. All right, we'll do cool bet lines later on. There's a lot to get to for tonight. We'll do a little bit of a golf update for Breezy Bend a little later on as well. But right now, let's get ready for a big one tonight, downtown Jets Leafs. And here he is for the second time this week, this time a planned appearance. It is a pleasure to welcome back to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily, our good friend. What's going on, dude?
Huss, nice to be with you. Count me among those who is eagerly anticipating Willie Jefferson delivering the weather to the good folks of Winnipeg at some point during a day off during the CFL season. And if he doesn't want to do the weather, you're right, Huss. Everything you said about him is true, even though I don't cover the Bombers on a regular basis. This is a guy that oozes personality. He could get into podcasting. I think he'd be great in kind of a color commentary role or an analyst role. I mean, this guy loves football clearly, and carries a little bit of passion with him on that daily basis.
The hamster is already turning up here right now, Ken. I mean, Winnipeg Sports Talk weather with Willie. I mean, just that. Like, we'll just, hey, Willie, can you give us just some forecasts for the upcoming games on the weekend? And he could have some fun with that. I think there's a lot of potential for us to work with Willie. Weather with Willie is one of them. Anything with Willie is quite fun. Hey, listen, just because we just had Willie Jefferson on, it was the big story yesterday. What was your reaction to what we heard from the Canadian Football League yesterday? And considering what we know and the challenges that they're up against, where's your optimism level as to that? And I realize there's a lot of things that have to come together, especially the virus getting into a bit better spot, Ken. But what was your reaction? Where's your optimism level that this can happen this year and we can get back out and watch the blue and gold try and run it back at IGF?
Yeah, let's go with cautious optimism, Huss. I think everything we heard yesterday was kind of good news. I think on a grander scheme of thing or a macro scale. Again, health's got to be first. But I mean, again, on that note, Huss, happy to say I was able to get my first dose of the AZ vaccine yesterday. I had no side effects whatsoever. So, if a 46-year-old is able to get in line there and get a dose, we got to hope that that's going to continue. We know the age has been dropping for the other vaccines as well. So I think that's a good sign here in Manitoba. We got to get those numbers down again. But overall, I think it's still probably excited. Folks who love the CFL want to see this happen if it can happen safely, for sure. I think there's probably some wiggle room if they do have to delay. Obviously, they'd like to get it started in that August date, but I'd say if they could play a 14-game season, I think a lot of people would be thrilled. I think players would be thrilled first and foremost. I mean, Willie's, he said it. I mean, it's a long time to go without being on a football field playing an actual game. So I think those guys would be really fired up to get on the field. And I mean, as you talked about too, I mean, fans haven't been to a game for a long time, and the last game they watched broke a very lengthy drought for those Bomber fans. So I think there's a cautious optimism, and I think that if this can happen safely, I think people will be super fired up to see it happen.
You know what, dude, man, just the way you said that there, I'm thinking back to that night in Calgary, to being at the game and being out afterwards and seeing all those guys out on the town and the jubilation. To think that we're sitting here talking about, the 2 hockey seasons later, thinking that was the last CFL football game we've seen. Like, I know, like, this has sort of become the new world we live in and all that, but I just sort of paused there when you were saying that. I go, I can't believe it's been that long and we're still here right now. But part of that, I think, speaks to how special it's going to be when they come back. And that was one of the things that Wade Miller said. We're not celebrating the 2019 championship until we can fill every seat in that building, because that truly will be a celebration for the organization, for the players that were part of that. But for the people that have supported this team for so long, it was such a long time coming. That should be a celebration that has everyone that can make it there.
Yeah, no doubt about that, Huss. It got me to thinking too. I mean, that day where they had the parade, Sarah Orleski and I walked the parade route basically with those floats kind of weaving in and out, and just to see the memory of that, the people celebrating with the Bombers, and obviously classic Strevler fur coat and chugging out of the cup and all of those things. But you saw how the community rallied around what was such a monumental event for them. Again, it's been such a long time. There were still tons of people who probably couldn't get off work that day and thought, well, you know what, this will be great just to go to the stadium and celebrate, in the first home game the next season. Well, guess what? That hasn't happened since. So I would say that there's a lot of people that still have a lot to celebrate. And, just that step closer to normalcy. We talked about on a daily basis, even in the Jets calls today, mental health was, at the forefront of a lot of the discussions. And I think it's something where, it's a nice break away from the day-to-day grind and routine that can be challenging at times, whether you're a professional athlete like Willie Jefferson or if you're a fan at home or if you have any connection to the sport whatsoever. I think that, that release from sports is something that people enjoy on a regular basis, let alone stuck in the middle of a pandemic that's, 13 months and counting. So I think that having those moments to look forward to is something that, people really kind of mark on the calendar and use as kind of a beacon of hope, if you will.
Speaking of those availabilities this morning, I was joking with Remis about Maurice's interaction with our pal Steve Simmons, and Cy didn't even get the question out because Maurice knew exactly where. And this was what a battle of a veteran reporter and a veteran coach. And I will give the nod to Maurice on this one for heading Cy off at the pass. But again, goaltending is such a big story going into tonight. And I don't know how Cy might have spun it for the Toronto market that he most writes for. But it was interesting hearing, first of all, how Maurice was able to pivot to an answer that hopefully will not be inflammatory to anybody. But also talking about what having a guy like Connor Hellebuck does for a head coach, and the fact that it's not really something he has to put a lot of thought into on most days. That's far from the situation Sheldon Keefe's in going into tonight, to say the least.
Yeah, Huss, I mean, you don't hear a coach say that he's publicly concerned with the goaltending very often, especially in a market like Toronto where those kind of comments sort of set some things ablaze, if you will.
Ken, after the last game, he talked about how well his team played, and then the quote was, "But there's some things you just can't overcome."
Yeah,
I
I know.
I
And
haven't heard that in a while.
yeah, no kidding. It's very interesting. I mean, I think that, a lot of people are saying that, Jack Campbell's run is over. I would say I would pump the brakes on that one. I mean, even in the games where I understand, yes, the Jets chased him and that was important for their confidence. And he hasn't, that winning streak is snapped, and now he's at a couple of, so-so outings instead of spectacular outings. But I mean, again, I don't think the Leafs were counting on Big Save Dave to be rolling into game 1 of the playoffs as their starter. He's number 3, kind of trying to hold off Michael Hutchinson. If they get that far down the depth chart, there's probably a bit of a challenge ahead. But I think Campbell's going to be fine. And, Freddie Anderson, we still know there's some question marks about when he'll return. But, I mean, the Leafs have lost 5 in a row, and it's not all been goaltending in that stretch either. So I think it's a big test for them. I mean, I talked about it with Sean yesterday on our digital hit. I mean, this is why Kyle Dubas brought in Wayne Simmons. This is why Kyle Dubas brought in Joe Thornton, guys that have been to the Stanley Cup final. You lean on your leadership. Yes, we know the drivers of that team are Marner, Matthews, Morgan Riley, but you have guys who've had playoff success. I mean, even Jason Spezza last year with the Dallas Stars. So, and going to the final, obviously, with Ottawa. So these are the times where you lean on those veterans. I mean, we know that Nick Foligno is a big storyline coming into the game today, making his debut. Oh, and guess what? You're on the top line. Zach Hyman's departure from the lineup because of injury has created an opportunity for Foligno. Why don't you just ride with us tonight, Huss? Just ride with us on the top line. You just bang some bodies, go to the ice, get your stick on the ice, and we'll take care of the creativity. You take care of the truculence, to coin that old Brian Burke phrase. A great opportunity for Foligno to jump in and make his debut. Much like Pierre-Luc Dubois' debut was highly anticipated by Jets fans. We know the same holds true for the Leafs going into tonight.
Yeah, Foligno, it was such a big topic. What was it, 10 days ago at the deadline? And, then you kind of move on, you focus on the minutia. How do you think, how big of an ad is Nick Foligno for the Maple Leafs? And how, I'm not sure whether we should expect him to stay in this spot. You make a great point that it was somewhat fortuitous timing, I guess, for if the final was going to get hurt for Foligno just to pop in this lineup. But where do you see him fitting in? And come playoff time, how big of an ad will that be for Toronto?
Yeah, I mean, the beauty with Hyman, Huss, we've seen it all year long. He can move up and down the lineup if you need him on that top line. He's obviously been great there. He's been great there against the Jets. I think Foligno will settle in either on that top line, or also I really see a place for him with Willie Nylander and John Tavares as well as a great option there. I mean, hey, the Leafs knew what happened to them. Dubois was an animal in the playoff series against them, and Nick Foligno was banging bodies and getting to the net and all of those things. So I think it was a great ad by Kyle Dubas. I understand a lot of folks are looking at what was given up and saying, well, why didn't the Leafs just go out and get Taylor Hall? Well, the Leafs got plenty of skill. They needed a guy like Nick Foligno, a guy who's been through the battles, a guy that brings a little bit more physical nature, gets to the net, has had some playoff success, unlike Taylor Hall. So I think that was a smart ad on the upfront as well. And then again, we saw Rasmus Sandin step in the other night and play on the back end. So I mean, Zach Bogosian sounds like he's going to be out of the lineup, Huss, for a bit. So, I mean, that's why they want him got depth like Ben Hutton. So I think Foligno's a really smart ad. Leafs fans probably expect him to have a hat trick in the debut, much like the Jets fans thought about Pierre-Luc Dubois coming in. But I think those are great ads by both teams. And I think both of those players will factor in quite heavily if these two teams meet in about a month from now, which again, when I asked Paul Maurice this morning about how weird is it to be playing game 8 against a team and you're still getting to know the characters. I mean, this is kind of crazy. You would never play a team 8 times, let alone now. Neither team has had their full roster at their disposal so far, and they still don't this game here. But I mean, again, we know this is a test for both sides. There's an enormous amount of respect between the two sides, but as you touched on earlier, I mean, the difference in the series so far is goaltending, and that's Connor Hellebuck. I mean, that's why each team has 8 points in the series.
It's interesting. We'll get back to Leafs in a second, but we do have our one of our regulars. Shout out to Mark Sports Video, who does some very interesting breakdowns too. He popped in a super chat. We appreciate that, Mark, as always. And he was asking about the last night's game. And this is an interesting question because we have spoken so much. I know Mark's always on, the Jets needing to be better at preventing opposition chances, shots, opportunities. But it was a pretty simple question. How did the Habs hold Edmonton to only 25 shots last night? I will say this before you answered. I remember those 2 back-to-back games the Jets lost to Edmonton. Those were 2 of their lowest shot totals of the year. Unfortunately, some of those shots and some of those good chances happened to go to Connor McDavid when we did it. But, just maybe thoughts on that as well as this 3-horse race, because Edmonton is very much a part of it, as are the 2 teams we're seeing tonight.
Yeah, they really are, Huss. I mean, it's a great question. I didn't watch the game last night, so I can't speak to that specifically. But I know Mark and I also chatted on the Twitter this week about the Oilers' ability to keep the high volume Canadians at a pretty low number the night before in that series as well. So I mean, again, we know that the Oilers have improved dramatically in terms of their defensive structure. Last night the Canadians showed the urgency that is required for a team that wanted to put some separation between them and the Calgary Flames. The Canadians, despite playing well defensively recently, had let Calgary feel as though they were still in the race, but now that's an 8-point cushion with games in hand. So not to say that it's over, but certainly it looks like they've given themselves enough breathing room now. In terms of the Oilers, man, Huss, they've improved defensively so much night and day. Dave Tippett deserves a lot of credit. He's got the buy-in at a full level right now from all their players. And again, you will never confuse Connor McDavid with being a Selke Trophy winner, at least not at this point. But I mean, he's put in the work, same as Austin Matthews in Toronto. So when you have that commitment from your star players, that has a trickle-down effect on the rest. I think it's a fabulous race going down to the wire. I mean, that would be a missed opportunity for the Oilers yesterday against the Canadians, but those 3 teams are still very much alive. I know the Jets with 3 head-to-head meetings with Toronto. They got those games with Edmonton coming up next week. There's still a lot of jockeying for position. And I mean, we talked the other day, Huss, about how the Jets kind of stumbled in 2019 and got bumped out of first place, then had to play St. Louis. Man, it sounds bizarre to say this, Huss, but if the Leafs continue to stumble in this series against the Jets, there is a very legitimate chance they could drop all the way from first to third. Again, is that a big advantage? Is that a big cause for concern? Well, I don't think so, but it certainly doesn't help the psyche of a hockey team knowing that they basically went wire to wire, and then all of a sudden around game 49 or 50, all of a sudden you're staring up at 2 teams that you pretty much had their number all year long. So, I mean, this is the stiffest test that the Leafs have had this season. Having said that, Huss, we know they've answered the challenge against the Leafs on a regular basis, and against the Jets, they're even in points. So we'll see what the next 3 games bring in that season series.
All right. Well, just coming off of Mark's question and bringing it back to the Winnipeg Jets, without major roster changes, Edmonton seemingly has, kind of bought in and played a lot better, and they're getting the results right now. When you look at the Winnipeg Jets, the roster's not changing. There's 10 games left to go. In your opinion, what would you like to see the Winnipeg Jets maybe tweak, improve on to give them the best chance against these teams once it counts in a best of 7?
Yeah, Huss, I understand there's still room for improvement, of course, but I actually think the Jets played the Oilers pretty well 5-on-5 the other day. Yes, the one goal by Puljujärvi that was an obvious glaring mistake that Kyle Connor can't chase in that position. And if he does, he has to prevent the pass. I mean, that's an easily correctable error. At 5-on-5, the Jets handled McDavid with relative ease, Huss. He had 1 shot on goal in the game. I can't even remember if it was a power play shot or even strength. So I would say they actually handled that part of it pretty well. It was just special teams that kind of got them in a bit of a rut with the 2 goals allowed. And again, the Jets had no legs. I mean, that was apparent for anyone watching the game. We know that they were sapped of energy. Now they won't have that reason or excuse. They're fresh. They're rested. They got 2 days off completely to refresh the tank or refill the tank. And now they should be at their absolute peak in terms of optimal efficiency, as best as you can be this late in the season. But again, that renewed commitment will have to happen. We knew this wasn't an overnight, sensation for the Jets. They weren't going to become a defensive juggernaut immediately. It would take all year long, and they're hoping that they get to the point by game 1 of the playoffs where they're operating at, a high level in terms of that defensive zone commitment, third guy high, defensemen being aggressive when they can, when they have backing. And I think there have been stretches where they've done that. I mean, we know how well the Jets played defensively in that last game at the end of the road trip in Toronto. So I think they've actually done it pretty well. I mean, it's night and day considering the first couple meetings of the year against the Leafs, where it was all Connor Hellebuck, and it was a high danger festival of opportunities that he would have to try to kick aside. But for me, the Jets have been better defensively. Are there still going to be some nights where they give up too many shots from prime areas? Yes, but for the most part, I think they are starting to buckle down, and they know that if they want to get past the first round and if they want to go on a run, they're going to have to be defensively conscious. We know this group can score, but we also know there have been times where they get a little bit too fancy and then their offense doesn't come. So they know they can put the puck in the net. If they can buckle down defensively like they did in 2018, that's the recipe for success. They know what the recipe is. Now, as Paul Stastny said earlier in the week, it's about not being selfish. It's about buckling in. It's about doing the job that you know is required of you. And if the Jets do that, I mean, they're just as good a bet as anyone in the North Division because of that storyline we talked about coming out of Toronto. Guess what? Connor Hellebuck is the great equalizer or the great eraser.
Kenny of Kenny and Rennie fame and Sportsnet contributor Ken Wiebe at Wiebe's World with us here on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. We see the return of the captain tonight, Blake Wheeler. And I know we spoke about this last week or the week before when Blake originally went out of the lineup. And I couched it a little bit because we didn't know a lot, and head injuries are different than anything else. It's not like, oh, he's got a tweak and he's going to be out 2 weeks and he's back for sure. We didn't know. But assuming that he was going to come back to full health and feel great a couple weeks off, how beneficial do you think this time off will be for Blake Wheeler in this final stretch, but most importantly, when the playoffs start? Because, I mean, I know he maybe kind of admitted to it yesterday, would never come right out and say it. It was very clear that when there was all the talk about Blake Wheeler at the beginning of the season, that wasn't even close to a 100% Blake Wheeler. And the guy has been the Iron Man of this hockey club for the first time since he's been here. He's just missed 2 weeks. I would imagine we'll see a fresh, recharged captain, and I can think that will only be good things for the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah, so I would expect Blake Wheeler is going to, be the best version of himself. And as you mentioned, I mean, you could tell how rejuvenated he looked just in his dealing with the media. We know that, he can run a little bit hot at times when it comes to those interactions. I think you saw someone who really benefited from 2 weeks at home. I mean, again, no one wants to go through a concussion, and obviously those times would have been incredibly tough. I mean, he admitted it. I mean, there's some days where you don't want to get out of bed, but when you can put those symptoms behind you and feel refreshed, and now suddenly your body feels good for the first time of the season, or certainly the first time in a long time. Again, we saw it on the first day back at practice after those 2-day break for the Jets. I mean, Blake Wheeler was flying around out there like vintage Blake Wheeler in those 91-point seasons. And again, can you translate that into the game in your first game back after missing 6? I mean, it's a tall task to ask for, but we know he's going to be excited about playing with, on a line with Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor. And Huss, I mean, you talked about it, ad nauseum for years. That line has to get more than it gives up, and that has occasionally been a challenge. But I expect those guys to be in a situation where here's the best way I can put it. They know if they can't deliver or hold up their end of the bargain on that front, they're not staying together. So for me, I think all three of those players will be on high alert and, paying attention in all three zones, knowing that as much as they enjoy playing together and they know what they can produce offensively, they know that if they don't get the job done at both ends of the ice, they're not going to be together because the blender has been out with great frequency, and Paul Maurice won't hesitate to do that again if he feels he has better options available to him.
Speaking of that blender, Andrew Kopp has been the ingredient that sometimes gets added into that top 6 and to blend it around. I had a real interesting convo a couple nights ago with Joel Marcoux, and we were talking about, Jets versus Edmonton, Jets versus Toronto, who's going to be the line outside of Lowry, because Lowry's not going to play 25, 27 minutes a night, which Connor McDavid was, in that last game. If they do mix up that top line, or they do put together a line outside of the Lowry group that is sort of the other line that is tasked with maybe doing more in their own end than offensively, could we see at some point a combination of Pierre-Luc Dubois potentially with Andrew Kopp moving up into that top 6, and whether it's Blake Wheeler, whether it's Paul Stastny, another player that it gives them some ability to score and hopefully spend some time in the other team's zone, but you've got high-end players maybe with the best defensive aptitude for those roles.
It's interesting, Hassan. I know that, you talked about it with Sean Reynolds last week, and he's been pounding that home on our shows. I'm not opposed to it. I'm not sold on it completely. I think it's much more likely that Dubois stays in the top 6 and that you might see Dubois move up to play with Wheeler, and maybe Connor bumps down. If you have Andrew Kopp go back to it, one of the most consistent lines the Jets have had was Kopp with Ehlers and Stastny. So again, now if you move Connor down, you're not asking that line to go head to head with McDavid or Matthews most likely. But I mean, I can see the pathway or the roadway to having Dubois with those guys. But again, now this week, Paul Maurice has gone back and kind of doubling down on he needs to see Pierre-Luc Dubois at center. So I think he'll get a little bit of a longer run at center. And if it doesn't start going more smoothly, then yes, I could see that option being investigated for sure. And the beauty of Kopp is that, he embraces the head-to-head. He also knows that he can play in the top 6, and he will not be afraid to move up. I mean, is it tough on him because he knows he's played well, he's had a career year, and he's still the one moving down? But this is not a demotion when Andrew Kopp goes with Adam Lowry and Mason Appleton. That line is basically given the ultimate responsibility. So as a player, it's way different than if you're getting bumped out of the top 6 to go to a checking line. That's not just a checking line, as Andrew so aptly told me about a month ago. That line has the biggest responsibility in terms of trying to shut down the opposition while also contributing offense. So I think he's got the perfect mentality to handle it, Huss. When it comes to Dubois, I think he would embrace it if it comes to that point. But I mean, as I've been mentioning for quite some time, I expect Dubois to play his best hockey once the playoffs begin. He's got a nice little stretch of time here to get that sorted out with maybe some regular line mates. I think there's some enormous potential for him and Nikolai Ehlers to get some chemistry going down the stretch here. And Paul Stastny obviously is fit on every line. He's been very versatile this year, fit on every line he's played on as well. So like Paul Maurice said, if you bought a jersey, don't be getting rid of it yet. And if you're having those arguments, maybe keep them at the kitchen table, because Paul Maurice will be checking the receipts for all the people that think that Dubois is somehow going to be a bust or won't be able to get the job done.
I'm actually on the exact opposite side, and I agree with everything that you've said. And part of the reason why I think we went down this path in this conversation is exactly what you mentioned about Dubois' previous time in the playoffs against a team like the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I think we know what Adam Lowry is going to be doing. He's going to be there with Mason Appleton and in all likelihood Andrew Kopp. But it's not to say that any of those other players couldn't come into that role if Kopp did move up. But as far as Dubois goes, I mean, listen, yeah, he wants to score and he wants to be an impact player when he's out there. He knows there's maybe no better way to be an impact player than to do what he did last playoffs against the likes of a McDavid or a Matthews if given that opportunity. And I would be surprised, frankly, if we didn't see that at some point when the playoffs begin.
Yeah, and that's totally fair. And like I said, I said this to Sean, I was completely against it at the beginning, and the more I thought about it and the more, I kind of sunk my teeth into it. I totally can understand the capability and the reasoning behind it. You're right. The best way to put a guy into a situation to have success is to take the offensive pressure off. Guess what? And maybe it's like the old days where you maybe set up a shadow situation. So you take him off center, but now you're basically shadowing a Matthews or a McDavid. Again, maybe it could become problematic at times, but you can do it with those guys because Lowry's played the wing before, and you'd have that ability to bounce back and forth down low and things of that nature. But I could certainly see it. I don't think it's option A for the Winnipeg Jets.
Well, just to be clear, Ken, I'm not suggesting moving Dubois to the wing at all. I'm suggesting having Dubois play center and potentially have, whether it's Wheeler, whether it's Andrew Kopp with him, but essentially set up a line with him in the middle with your Connor McDavid or your Austin Matthews will get ready to a non-stop rotation of Adam Lowry and Pierre-Luc Dubois every time you go out on the ice. And then, of course, the question is that if you do that, it might mean a few less minutes for the Scheifele line. But I think from a coaching perspective, it probably puts his line, whoever he's playing with, in a much better opportunity to finish on the positive side of the ledger at the end of 60 minutes.
Yeah, the matchup manipulation, Huss, would be really there. And again, like I said, the other night, the Jets had that opportunity on several chances with Scheifele going out against Jujhar Khaira and against Gaetan Haas, both of whom had solid games. But I would think that the Jets, having fresh legs, would welcome that opportunity to do that. And I think we'd see it tonight at certain points too. I mean, if Scheif is going out against Mikheyev and Kerfoot, I would say that should be a matchup that is heavily weighted towards the Winnipeg Jets, with all due respect to the Toronto Maple Leafs third line. I'm a big fan of Mikheyev's game overall. I mean, he hasn't had the finish that maybe would be required given the chances he's been able to create, but for sure, you're right. I mean, if Dubois gets locked in the way he did against not only Toronto, but also the way that he played against Tampa the last 2 years in the playoffs.
Oh, big time.
I mean, that's the kind of guy who's not afraid to go up against Braden Point and company. So I do think that is part of his mentality. He wants to be the best player on the ice. Again, I think this is more a matter of him putting an enormous amount of pressure on himself. I think once he becomes unlocked, I think you're going to see a guy who's a really bona fide power forward that can have a massive impact on the game at both ends of the ice.
Great to see everybody live with us on YouTube. Kenny Wiebe always packs them in. If you're just getting in right now, do us a favor, hit that like button. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. And you can do that on the Kenny and Rennie channel as well. They'll be on tomorrow morning and after the game tonight. We'll find out what's coming up from Ken in just a minute. Ken, Jordie Benn makes his debut tonight. Lots of talk in the chat about Ben, who's in. First of all, what do you expect to see from Jordie Benn? For folks that haven't seen him, what's he going to bring to the team? He'll be playing with Dylan DeMello tonight. And beyond tonight, how do you see that the defense rolling for the next 10 games, considering what's on the line? Certainly sounds like Paul Maurice very much wants to take a real run at first place. But also, you're getting ready for when it really counts, and that's the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Yeah, big, strong, rugged guy on the back end. Huss, moves the puck, fair enough. I think he's a guy that's going to be used on the penalty kill, at least based on what we saw yesterday. Probably go out with Dylan DeMello on the PK. Really smart guy, capable veteran, knows what his role is. Again, he hasn't played for quite some time. So again, you're not expecting Jordie Benn to be going end to end, but he's an effective player when he's on his game. He brings a little bit of a physical element that the Jets, occasionally don't have an abundance of.
Does he have a better net front presence than maybe some of the other guys that have been in that position before?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Logan Stanley's learning that part of the job for sure at the NHL level. But again, that is something that the Jets want to improve on, and I think Jordie could help in that area. I mean, Paul Maurice kind of made it known that there's going to be a bit of a platoon situation. I mean, I understand the frustration from some folks. I do think we're going to see Heinola and Stanley both down the stretch. I don't think this is a 10-game run for Jordie Benn. I would be surprised if that's the case anyway, but it's an opportunity for all these guys. I see this as an open competition. It's a 10-game open competition for those three players. And again, I even if Logan Stanley or Jordie Benn is the game one starter, I still don't think that means that Ville Heinola does not have an impact on the playoffs for the Winnipeg Jets. We almost always see 8 to 10 defensemen deep when it comes to postseason time. So I think that we'll see all three of those guys. I think Logan Stanley has done a great job of building his resume during the course of the year. We know obviously Saturday night's game was rough on him. I mean, tough turnover and penalty, all those things. I think his confidence was a little bit dented there. But again, he's bounced back from much tougher situations than one bad night. And let's get real. If we're really only talking about Logan Stanley's first subpar game of the season, where it really stood out, that says a lot about what he's been able to accomplish during the season as an NHL rookie. So I expect him to see more ice time down the stretch, and I expect him to be sharp the way that he has been on a lot of nights this year. Heinola, I understand the frustration for sure, as mentioned, but I think that his puck-moving ability could certainly factor into a playoff series, and I do think that the fact that he played a pretty reasonable game considering he was out for a month was something that would have stood out to the coaching staff, and that he'll get another shot here as well. Jordie Benn, the other thing about him, Huss, it's easier for a guy like Jordie Benn to go in and out of the lineup than it is for a younger player who hasn't really gone through that before. Again, let's not forget, this guy played some top-line minutes in Vancouver when Travis Hamonic was out with Quinn Hughes. So, again, that counts for something. And again, this is not a guy who's going to be hanging his head if he starts the playoffs as the seventh guy. Not saying the other guys would, but as a young player, it's a lot easier to be giving the woe is me attitude rather than someone like a veteran like Ben, who's gone through that before and knows that it's just a numbers game. And guess what? The best way to use that time effectively is to work your behind off to be ready when your number is called, like we saw with Jansen Harkins.
Yeah, and you know what? It's interesting because, I mean, I get it. If I'm Logan Stanley and I've been playing well and I'm out of the lineup, I'm not pumped about it, obviously, but I think, you have to realize the bigger picture. Willie Hainel would be the exact same way. I think they'll see a guy like Jordy Ben, who has a ton of experience, come in and, become a good member of the team, whether he's in or out. But honestly, and this was a conversation we had dating back, well, I guess it was going back to Nick Ehlers, and he was talking about, some of the veteran players that have come in, and the coaches talked about that as well. When you bring in a Thompson, when you bring in a Trevor Lewis, and those sort of guys pull their weight the way they have, it does seem like they maybe have the best balance of a team right now that they've had in a long time, where it's not all about one guy. It's certainly not all about one line, which at times I think you could legitimately say that has been an issue in the past. And, if you are a Logan Stanley or a Willie Hainel, I think you just have to look at the room, the success the team that's been having. And, as hard as it is, you have to have a little bit of patience. But most importantly, you better be ready when they call your number, because that chance is going to come at some point in the near future.
Yeah, and that's a great testament to both those young players, Huss. I mean, they've got a lot to learn from a guy like Jordy Ben, especially a guy like Logan Stanley, who wants to become a regular penalty killer. Here you got this great resource, a guy who's done it for his whole career and, battled it out as an undrafted guy. So whereas you're a first-round pick with all these expectations on you, I think there's a lot to be learned. And it's a real testament to both Stanley and Hainel that they both basically had a month off between games and then jumped back into the lineup and were effective. So to me, that really stands out about the, mental fortitude, if you will. So I think that's an impressive job by both of those guys. And again, competition is good. It can breed, it can bring out the best in players, and I expect it will bring out the best in both of those young players for when those next opportunities arise.
Well, you mentioned some time off, a month between games. Those guys have nothing on Nelson Nogier.
Yes.
The Noge, noted pugilist Nelson Nogier, just ask Jared Bull. He's back in the lineup tonight for the first time in, I think, 13 months. But Emery Knight asks, what do y'all think about the taxi squad Moose movement today? Do you think any of the guys sent down there for conditioning stints and maybe making it into some Jets games this season? If you can, just if folks missed it, there was a lot of transfer between the Moose, the taxi squad, and some of this, well, for a guy like Nogier, it's just to let him play in a game. I mean, the Moose had been off for the last 10 days, so there wasn't anything to happen anyways, but it was time for him to get in a game, and it seems like there is some moving parts right now outside of the Jets starting 12.
Yeah, you bet, Huss. I mean, fair question. I don't think those moves were made for NHL reasoning. Again, Nogier's behind a couple other guys on the depth chart. It's a great opportunity for him to get back into some action. Toninato, could we see him down the stretch? Maybe. I'm not 100% sure. He's more of a veteran guy who had injuries earlier on in the year. I am a little bit surprised. I thought maybe Vesalainen might get a game, and maybe he gets Saturday afternoon's game if he's not going to be in the Jets lineup on Saturday. We know these are the last two home games, I think, for the Moose before, a road trip to end the season. So I think it's just an opportunity it's a bit of a carrot, a bit of a reward for guys who've been working really hard on that taxi squad for the majority of the year, get them some game action and just let them take out some of those frustrations maybe on an opponent rather than a teammate after going and doing all of those extra conditioning skates at the end of practices. So I don't think there's a huge grand scale plan for when it comes to Nogier and Toninato specifically. Luoto's gone a long time between games as well. Good chance for him to get back in the lineup for the Moose as well. But I think there's just enough guys or too many guys ahead of them on the depth chart that I don't expect to see them in NHL action this year. I mean, Toninato's had NHL experience. I mean, yes, Nogier has as well to a degree, but I don't expect those guys to be part of the bigger plans unless they get pretty deep in the injury or COVID situation. That, again, after watching what happened with Vancouver, everyone is hopeful that doesn't happen to any other team this year.
James Robinson. Yes, tonight, James, the Moose will release the Nogier. He will be out there ready to go. And goal Perfetti. Perfetti has been one of the great stories, and kind of an unfortunate time for the team not to play for 10 days because he was putting up some big numbers going forward. And again, I'm not saying this to get people all fired up. Maybe he'll come in and play at this point. I mean, who knows? If enough guys get hurt, maybe he's a player, and particular guys get hurt, maybe he would get his opportunity. But big picture for a guy that should have been playing in the Ontario Hockey League this year, from an organizational perspective, they got to be pretty excited about what their first rounder from last year has been able to do against men.
And no doubt about that, Huss. Had an opportunity to watch him twice this year. Again, just exceptional hockey intelligence. Really, he's done a nice job. You always wonder about an undersized guy, especially at that age, how they're going to be able to hold up, against, veteran, experienced players. And he did an exceptional job. because of that mind, it really allowed him. I mean, he's a smart guy. He's great to talk to. We both talked to him on numerous occasions. He's just soaking. He's a sponge. He's soaking up every single experience that he's had this year. Obviously, there'd be a layer of disappointment not being able to go back to the OHL and light things up maybe. But at the same time, he's really, created an important role for himself at the Moose, especially on that power play. Really done a nice job in terms of how he's fit in, and just he's that half wall distributor, Huss, and he's done an excellent job on those fronts. I mean, could there be an opportunity for him to join the playoff taxi squad now that the OHL is not going to be playing when the Moose season is over? I mean, you wouldn't rule it out. It would be something where I don't think we'd see him in action, but for him to be around a team under those circumstances, again, we don't know what the rules will be in terms of roster sizes or anything like that, but this has been an exceptional year for Cole Perfetti, and the best is yet to come for him. Again, I understand a lot of folks are starting to think, well, maybe he can press. Is it possible that he gets a game or two in the fall if the season gets back on the calendar? Yes, but you'd be asking an awful lot for Perfetti to be an NHL regular basically at 19 years old. Having said that, he's really benefited from, as you mentioned, the opportunity to play in the NHL as an underager, essentially an opportunity that wouldn't be available to most CHL players in a normal circumstance. So he deserves full credit. He's a hardworking guy, and he just always wants to get better, and that's what will continue to drive him moving forward.
All right, Kenny, this has been a lot of fun. I know you got to run. Let's quickly tee up tonight for folks that have somehow missed the boat on this. You and Ken will be, or you and Ren will be on after the IC guys finish up their post-game coverage. And then tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., I believe, another edition. Put on your best WWE hat and cut a nice promo.
Yeah, your promos are on the weekend, the Teeing Up Monday show, are a lot better than mine has. But we got. I also have to tell you, I have one of those, those workplace signs. It's up to 5 days since Zoom incident. I have a sign on my wall right now, Hus. 5 days since latest Zoom incident. Happy to say that one of our friends, Mike Zeisberger, my former post media colleague now at NHL.com, he will be joining us right out of the gate to talk a little Jets, Leafs, and also Patrick Marleau. He's a guy that covered the story of Patrick Marleau becoming the all-time games played leader. And then back to our original part of the conversation, the man who called the Winnipeg Blue Bombers Grey Cup championship, Chris Cuthbert, CC, will join us to round out the show tomorrow. Just two more great guests coming on with Sean and I on that 9 o'clock start Central Time. We're going to talk a lot of sports and get a little bit of the background on how those guys got to where they are and their passion for the sport on our latest edition of the Kenny and Rennie Show.
We've somehow turned you into some sort of a futuristic robot image on the screen, Ken. So maybe that's time for us to wrap it up. Again, Kenny and Rennie on YouTube, folks. Give it a sub and look for them tonight, late night after IC. And then tomorrow with a great group of guests at 9 a.m. Or as YouTube is, it'll be there for eternity for you to watch over and over again if you do so choose. It should be a great game tonight, Kenny. But it's always fun getting ready for it with you on the program. Thanks for doing this.
My pleasure, Hus. Enjoy the tilt and have a tremendous weekend. Thanks for having me.
You got it, man. We made it. We didn't even make any Zoom jokes until right at the end, and Ken did it himself. I did not bring it up at all. We addressed the incident on Monday, had a lot of fun doing it. But anyways, I'm looking forward to that show tomorrow. Definitely check that out before we get going here on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Thanks, as always, to Ken for joining us. And yeah, if you just popped in a little later on, we did have Bomber fan favorite and QB killer Willie Jefferson on at the start of the program. It was a heck of a lot of fun, so check that out if you missed it. All right, we got to get to some cool bet lines for tonight. We'll also take a look at what is happening on the PGA Tour as they're at the Zurich Classic with the pairs. But let's get Michael Remis back in here and recap our thoughts after our Jets-Leafs conversation with one Ken Wiebe. Reem, was there an issue with Ken's wavelength? Like, he did turn into kind of a ghoulish image a few times on the YouTube chat. He sounded great, though, for folks that were listening on the podcast.
Yeah, I don't know what it is with Ken's internet connection. I got to work on this with him because he's going to be coming on frequently. But every time he comes on, there's some, to use a technical term, packet loss. And the video starts glitching. Ooh. So I found a button on our control deck that I can just hit the button and it fixes it. So
packet loss. That's an amazing new term. Anyone in the chat, have you ever heard that term before? Packet, like P-A-C-K-E-T?
Yeah, packet? Yeah. So basically, his connection and my internet all of his data isn't coming over, so there's some glitching in his video, and I'm hitting the button to refresh it and bring it up. So I'm gonna have to talk with him. Maybe he's using a bad browser, or he's probably on wireless internet, which is always not great. But we're making through, and I'm doing the best over here. James Robinson says I lost a packet of mustard once. So
the bullet says that's called compression artifacts. Yep, packet loss causes the loss of the keyframes. Well, first things first, we want to make sure the audio is good. We had great video at the end of Willie, but we couldn't hear him. But we got to see him throw up the W, flash the blue and gold for the fans. That was an epic way to run out. And I will say this. You want to know who's on the hot seat right now, Reem? Colleen Brady, because Willie Jefferson has announced his interest in becoming a weather person. And anyone in the weather game is probably feeling a little nervous today that big steamin' Willie Beeman himself may be trying to get into that. Of course, we love Colleen. We love Terry. I'm just joking. But if you told me Willie Jefferson was doing weather pretty much anywhere, I would be in. I'd be subscribing. I'd want the notifications, and I'd be getting them on a daily basis. Weather with Willie will happen on Winnipeg Sports Talk at some point this year.
Yes. Sure. If Willie wants to come on and do whatever, I know everyone in chat definitely loves it. Hey, one thing about
Mitch, did you see? As you get older, you will definitely get package loss.
Yeah,
touche, Mitch.
A lot of people with IT backgrounds popping in here and saying stuff. So we got a lot of knowledgeable chat. One thing about Willie, Huss, where's number 5 as a defensive lineman? And in the NFL, you can't do that. But now, I don't know if you've seen, there's a bit of an outrage from Tom Brady today. He's very upset that, receivers can now be single-digit numbers and other players will be able to be. There's a bit of an uproar in the National Football.
Are you telling me that Tom Brady is mad online right now because of the changes to the numbers in the National Football League?
Very mad. I want to bring up this tweet.
Please do. While Remis gets to that, let me get to the cool bet lines of the day. I have a feeling that we'll be spending a little bit of time on this Brady take. Any opportunity for me to get after Brady, especially for what sounds like a terrible take, I will take it. But let's do it. Coolbet.com is our wonderful line sponsor. Go to our Sports Talk Winnipeg Twitter feed, and we'll have a special offer for you if you want to get in on Coolbet. Of course, the game tonight we're all focusing in on is the Jets and the Leafs. It is the line of the day on Coolbet, so with a three-way line, we're going to focus in on just the money line. Who's going to win the damn game? You think the Winnipeg Jets will win it? Plus 105, you get more than double your money. The Leafs, a road favorite at minus 125. Couple other good games tonight. Colorado is at St. Louis. The Avalanche back off of their time out due to COVID-19 scare. They're minus 161 on the road. And St. Louis is plus 136. Might be an interesting spot to get the Blues considering the time off for the Avalanche. The Columbus Blue Jackets. Max Domi will be back in the lineup. He's excited to get off the bench and out of the doghouse. They're going up against the Tampa Bay Lightning. David Savard makes his debut against his old team. You got the Flyers at Rangers. Pittsburgh, a huge favorite over the Devils. I'm still wrapping my head around their game these two teams played 2 nights ago where it was 6-0 going into the third period, and the Devils ended up losing 7-6. First team ever to score 6 goals in, or maybe the Penguins were the first team to give up 6 goals in a period and in the third period and still win the hockey game. That was one for the ages. Maybe the best game early coming out from the East, the Capitals and the Islanders. Caps on the road, plus 105 underdogs. Islanders and Barry Trotz's squad, minus 125 at home. And for our friends at Breezy Bend, let's take a quick look at what's going on at the Zurich Classic of New Orleans. This was the best ball today, so you knew the scores were going to be low. Victor Hovland and Christopher Ventura are 10 under par. You've got a group at 9 under par, including Cameron Champ and Tony Finau, Billy Horschel and Sam Burns, Keegan Bradley and Brendan Steele, and Kyle Stanley and Ki-Hoon Lee. At 8 under par are my guys Xander Schauffele and Pat Cantlay, and there's Bubba Watson and Scotty Scheffler. And it's gorgeous outside today. A big shout out to everyone at Breezy who's getting back out on the course today as it is reopened. Still doing some work on that 3rd and 9th hole, but I cannot wait to get out there, have a few on the patio, hit some balls, do a round sometime very soon. And if you are wondering, they are full right now, but they've already been adding to the wait list for next year. So if you're looking for maybe the premier place to have an incredible summer on the links, Breezy Bend's the place to be. Find out more, breezybend.ca, or pop in, give him a call, and talk to Corey Johnson, the best GM around. All right, let's get Remis back in here. I'd like to know more about this Tom Brady, Matt Online number issue. And you know me, I talk a lot about numbers. We're always talking about the training camp numbers they give to young players and then force them to play as NHLers until they graduate and get a real number. But it is interesting. There's been a pretty significant change. Cornerbacks can wear single-digit numbers now, a number of other players. And apparently Brady's not happy about it, Reem.
Yeah, here's the tweet, or he posted on Instagram, the new numbers listing. So you can see a lot of guys now, couldn't wear single digits. So he says, good luck trying to block the right people now. Going to make for a lot of bad football. That's Tom Brady in his IG story. So yeah, quarterbacks, punters, and kickers 1-19 now. DBs can be 1-49. Running backs 1-49, and running backs, fullbacks, tight ends, receivers 80-89 and 1-49. So you could see a lot of skill guys wearing single digits where you couldn't before. He did have one other fire take. This is a fire take coming up from Brady. He says, dumb. Why not let the linemen wear whatever they want to? Why even have numbers? Just have colored jerseys. Why not wear the same number? Dumb. So Tom Brady is tagging the NFL and NFLPA. He is very fired up about this. So, and if you have a jersey of a player, like a skilled guy who maybe wore a single digit in college, they could end up going to that now. So Tom Brady thinks it's ruining football. Well, I think it's awesome. I don't know. I'm not playing, so I don't really have to worry about who's blocking who. But
you know what? Regardless of the take, can we just do a quick rating on his Instagram game? It's
strong.
Interesting. He did get the clip in there, and, he certainly wanted to make an impact. I don't know what the font was that he dropped on dumb at the top, but there was no wiggle room for interpretation of Brady's thoughts on these new numbers. And what's funny about this is I have not heard one other player say anything about this. And to be perfectly honest, this might be the most outspoken Tom Brady has been about anything since he got suspended 4 games for the deflated balls.
Yeah, you know what? You're actually right. He's usually pretty straight line. He's got a good Instagram. He's posting these videos with Gronk. But when it comes to, running backs wearing single-digit numbers or linebackers, oh, man, that's rough. Tom Brady doesn't like that. So I don't think there's going to change anything, but that's the first person I've say who thinks that it's dumb. I guess it does make sense if you want to know who to block, but I mean for swag purposes, single digits are in.
Well, and you know what? There's so many big time players that come out of college as stars wearing those single digits and then come and end up having to take an entirely new number. What this will probably work is these high priced rookies coming in are going to really have to pay to get the number that they want right now. So Tom should be thinking about the veteran players of the league and think about the influx of cash that they will get for selling their numbers to hotshot rookies. That would be big for the veterans going forward. There's going to be a lot of cash exchanging hands.
There could be. I remember receivers they're usually 80 to 89, but now they got so many. You have guys in the in the teens.
If you're a receiver now wearing a number in the 80s, it's almost like you're a backup. Like you're like the 5th guy. And before that was never the case. The only guys I can think, like Tampa's receivers were all in the single digits. I mean, I even think of the Chiefs. I mean, Tyreek Hill is 10, Robinson is 11, Sammy Watkins was 14. Conley when he was there. I mean, they're all in the teens now. And CeeDee Lamb took 88, and 88 is a special number in Dallas because, of course, it was Michael Irvin, then it was Dez, Shout out to Dez and now CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah. If anyone,
But for the most part.
for people listening on the podcast, you just like crossed your arms and did.
I threw up the X. That's
up the
called
X.
throwing up the X. I mean, that's Des Bryant. I mean, Gregory Liverpool knows what I'm doing right there. And Greg is saying, Zeke was number 6 at Ohio State.
Yeah, it's the Ohio State. Come on, Greg.
Sorry, the Ohio State
Come on.
University as well. Well, I tell you what, this has been fun. My focus is entirely on this hockey game tonight, though, Reem. What's your feeling? We're going into it was supposed to be 3 games. It's 2 games now against the Maple Leafs. I'd like your thoughts on these games, and if you are with us live on YouTube, I'd like some predictions in the chat, and I would also like you to kindly hit that like button. That's the thumbs up.
Yeah, well, I'll give a couple of thoughts. We always do our DraftKings contest. I was looking at DraftKings. They've been really bad this year at pricing guys when they come back from injury. So it's Blake Wheeler's first game. He's like 4,200 tonight. So I have him. He's playing on the top line, top power play. I like Blake Wheeler. And if you're playing DraftKings, maybe you want to get him. Or there's another really low price guy playing his first game with a new team on the other side, Nick Foligno. He's playing on the top with Martin Matthews. He's min price. He's $3K.
What?
So maybe, he's Foligno's. I don't know if he's playing power play though. If he's playing power play,
whatever. If he's playing with Matthews and Marner and he's $3K from a value perspective on DraftKings, that seems to be like the most auto pick. I mean, maybe he'll have 70% ownership in the $5 spot.
Yeah, I have Hellebuck, so I'm not rushing to play Foligno. But last game, Galchenyuk was like 3,300, and I played Galchenyuk against Hellebuck, and Galchenyuk actually scored, and Hellebuck got the win. So that's like the first time that's ever worked out. But when a guy's like that low priced, I might consider it. Daily Faceoff does not have Foligno on the first power play or the second power play, but that could be because he's never played with them, and we don't know where he's going to be.
Do they still have Hyman on there?
No, Daily Faceoff's pretty good. They got Tavares, Nylander, Marner, Matthews, Riley, PP1, PP2, Simmons, Thornton, Spezza, Galchenyuk, and Rasmus Sandin. That's what Daily Faceoff has, which I trust. But again, Foligno's he's never played a game, so who knows what he's going to do. But that was a person I saw, Chris Abbott from CoolBet, your guy, tweeting out that he likes Ehlers and Nylander over a point, even as favorites to score a point.
Okay, Gregory has a take here, and there's a reason why he's a legend on these streets and on this show. Gregory has a prediction tonight: Toronto 8 at Winnipeg 9.
What?
17 goals. So, Greg, listen, Connor Hellebuck's not giving up 8 goals. I guess that would mean both goalies get run. Everything that gets shot at goes in the net. I mean, I would be here for it. The 9-8 game, anyone that's been following the Winnipeg Jets since 2011 remembers the craziest game of all time, bar none. Year number 1. The infamous 9-8 win over the Philadelphia Flyers, Reem, a game that, while it's a long time ago, no one will ever forget. It was I believe it was a weekday afternoon game, if I'm not mistaken. And I remember I was watching the game at Confusion Corner that first year, and every time there was a goal, beers would be half price, and they'd hit the goal horn. Well, needless to say, the goal horn never stopped going off, and I don't think the Taps did either. Somehow the Jets came back and after blowing a 3-goal lead in the third period, winning the game 9-8. And I seem to remember some amazing goalie quotes that day. That was a Brizgalov year, if I'm not mistaken. And he was lost in the woods.
Yeah, I think there was a couple goalie changes that game. We'll never forget that game. In terms of memorable Jets games, I mean, who cares about whatever playoff game? The 9-8 game is the number one everyone's going to say. I don't think it's going to be 9-8. Someone said in chat it's going to be off to a slow start because of the time off for the Jets. It was funny. We were joking. Okay, last game was the first game after the road trip. It's always, well, they've had a 4-day break. Is that not the equivalent to
no,
what,
first game after road trip? I think this is going to be a big start for the Jets, actually. I think they're going to come out far better than they did against Edmonton. And I think they're going to be shooting the puck a lot early, trying to get to Jack Campbell the way they did the last time these two teams played. Either way, I know it should be a great one tonight, and it's the first of 2. We'll see these two teams go at it again on Saturday, and we'll be talking about it tomorrow. Tomorrow actually is going to be a great show. I'm not sure if Vern is in here. Vern has been the number one. We've got a number of people asking when we were going to talk Jets with Dennis Bayak. Well, that day, my friends, is tomorrow. Voice of the Jets from TSN3, Dennis Bayak, will be our guest tomorrow. And I'm sure we'll have a lot more to get to from this game. Potentially, do we know if Justin Bourne's going to be able to go yet tomorrow, Reem?
I'm just working out a time. He said he should be good.
Excellent.
But,
yeah, great contributor for Sportsnet. Very interesting guy, and a guy that I know will be paying close attention to tonight's game. So I have a feeling there'll be a lot of Jets-Leafs content tomorrow in the program, discussing what happens tonight, and of course looking forward to not the final game of the season between these clubs, but the second last on Saturday. And, if the Jets can get some results in these two games, we could very well be destined for a matchup on May 14th between these two clubs for the North Division banner. And wouldn't that be an incredible way to finish the 56?
Yeah, again, that would be pretty wild. So we'll wait and see. I know it's funny. A lot of people saying in chat that they want, what if the Jets just lost all their games and finished fourth and then got the Leafs in the first round? No, lost all of them, but lost enough games so they strategically finished fourth and play the Leafs instead of playing Edmonton.
Okay, whose take
someone
is
wrote that in chat.
That is, I'm not going to do that. 2 thumbs down from me on that. Not 1, 2 to that. No, this is about winning. Listen, don't worry about the Leafs. If the Jets are going to make it out of this division, I have a feeling they'll be seeing the Leafs at some point. So, but I think there would be definitely an advantage to getting first place, getting the Habs in the first round, and letting Edmonton and Toronto go at each other and decide who's there playing the winner of Montreal and Winnipeg.
I think there's some Jets fans I've seen that are scared of Edmonton. I know Edmonton keeps beating the Jets, but you look at the roster, and I know McDavid, he scored another one the other day. And and he just keeps scoring these crazy goals where he's skating through an entire team. But it's one guy. I'm more confident in being able to stop one guy than an entire team.
Hey, here's the thing, folks. We need to, when it comes to the Jets Oilers and the lack of success lately, we just need to dial it down a little bit. We need to relax. The Jets have these 2 games against Toronto. Then they've got 2 games against Edmonton next week. If those 2 games go poorly, and we're talking about 6 straight losses going into a potential matchup, then we can crank up the nervousness and the fear factor a little bit. But there's still some hockey to be played. There will be hockey to be played between these 2 teams next week. And I think that we'll have a better idea of how the Jets can be. Listen, this is a good division. They're all really good teams. There's no easy outs. But I think there's reason to think the Jets will have a good chance against whoever they play. But again, it's all about what they do, not as much what the other teams do. This has been a great show today, folks. If you're dying for some more of me, I'll be coming up in about 90 minutes or so, doing the show out on Sportsnet 960 in Calgary. Take you into game night tonight if you want to join me here. And then tomorrow, Reem, I'm so fired up to have Dennis Bayak join us on the program, one of our all-time faves. One of the great characters in broadcasting and certainly in TSN 1290 history. And guy that'll be very much looking forward to these next couple games, this stretch drive, and of course playoff hockey with the Winnipeg Jets back in Winnipeg, even if the fans won't be in the building. Yeah, going to be awesome to talk to Dennis. One fact about Dennis that I didn't know, well, actually I knew that, but he used to be the GM of the Seattle Thunderbirds, but we're all talking about Patrick Marleau's setting the record for games, and Gary Lawless tweeted out that Dennis was the one who drafted Marleau in junior. I thought that was pretty cool. So it goes way back there for Dennis. Yeah, no, that will be fun. We'll definitely talk about that and so much more on the program. So that is going to do it for us, gang. We'll look forward to doing it all over again tomorrow at 1 o'clock. Hopefully talking about a big win for the home squad tonight. Again, thank you so much for joining us. For those of you that are still with us live, great numbers all day today. Hit that like button if you would before you leave the room. Tell a friend about Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily, how they can subscribe on YouTube or their favorite podcast network. And as always, we can't do it without our amazing sponsors, Not AutoCorp, Boston Pizza, Royal Sports, the Nick and Nicky DQ Group, Breezy Bend, Cool Bet, and new to the team, welcome aboard Assiniboia Downs. A week tomorrow, we'll have our big Kentucky Derby preview with Kirk Contois, and can't wait to have Darren Dunn on in the next couple weeks before next season of live racing gets going. That's going to do it for us. Thanks to Willie Jefferson. Thanks to Ken Wiebe. And thanks to all of you for making us a part of your day. Have a great night tonight, gang. Enjoy the hockey game. We'll talk about it tomorrow right here on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Have a great night.
Oh my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.